Angry Birds is such a classic game. It was one of the best mobile games ever, back when mobile games were actually good. Thanks to the massive success of Angry Birds, the company behind the game decided to expand more of its franchise, whether it would be merchandise, more games, or movie collaborations, or of course, animated movies. But they had this one movie collaboration game that totally stands out. And today, we will be talking about Angry Birds Star Wars. It was a crossover between Angry Birds and Star Wars. It was a really fun game, as they took the Angry Birds characters and cast them as Star Wars characters based on their roles. It was such an enjoyable experience, but sadly, it doesn't exist anymore. As time went on, the game's popularity was starting to decrease. Things were not going right with it, which is what caused it to be delisted from app stores. But what happened? How could such an amazing game get removed from existence? Well, let's go over the history of Angry Birds Star Wars. The game was released back on November 8th, 2012. It was like a retelling of the previous Star Wars movies. It had an amazing run. The gameplay was just like classic Angry Birds, and it was like watching the Star Wars movies at the same time. Rovio even had this thing called telepods. They were toys where you can actually insert the characters into the game and use them. It was a toy-to-life trend that was pretty popular for video games such as Skylanders, Disney Infinity, and LEGO Dimensions. The telepods were pretty perfect, as players can just insert the Angry Birds Star Wars characters into the game itself. They even did that with Angry Birds Transformers, another movie collaboration. Thanks to the success of Angry Birds Star Wars, it was able to get a sequel called Angry Birds Star Wars 2. The game was just as successful as the first Angry Birds Star Wars, which it was actually nominated for Favorite App Game in the 2014 Kids' Choice Awards. Things were going great with Angry Birds Star Wars, but unfortunately, things just couldn't last forever. As the years went by, a lot of people stopped playing Angry Birds Star Wars. The game was starting to become outdated, and it was getting way less popular than it was before. There was barely anyone talking about it. The Toys to Life trend was also starting to die, as it was becoming more of an outdated trend. And it feels weird looking at the telepods nowadays. They used to be huge, but now it looks like they're only collectibles, which you can actually still buy on Amazon. In December 2019, Rovio announced that Angry Birds Star Wars would be discontinued on February 3rd, 2020, alongside Angry Birds Star Wars 2, Angry Birds Space, Angry Birds Rio, and other games in the series. This is just like when Rovio removes the classic Angry Birds game twice from the App Store. They did that just because they wanted customers to play their newest games. As for Angry Birds Star Wars, they didn't remove it just because they wanted people to play their newest games. They removed it due to licensing issues. And nowadays, you can no longer download Angry Birds Star Wars even if you try visiting the App Store. However, those who have already downloaded the game can still play it as normal, but they cannot make in-app purchases or receive advertisements. But wait a minute, could we still buy the game physically? Actually, yes, we can. There are actually physical copies of Angry Birds Star Wars you can still buy on Amazon. It works for some consoles such as Nintendo 3DS, Xbox, and PlayStation. So if you happen to own any of these consoles and you want to play the game, feel free to buy it. Sadly, there are actually no available physical copies for Angry Birds Star Wars 2. There's none for Xbox, PlayStation, and not even for 3DS. So most likely that game could be considered lost media, unless if you have already downloaded it. Angry Birds Star Wars was an amazing game Rovio gave us. It may not be popular or talked about nowadays, but it will still remain as a classic masterpiece. I even loved the trailers they had for both games, which the trailers are actually still up on the official Angry Birds YouTube channel and on the official Star Wars channel to this day, so feel free to check them out if you want. They are pretty funny. Thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're new here. What are your thoughts on Angry Birds Star Wars? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.